Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fradby's Died Laughing and I am here with another weekly wrap up. This is going up on Bank Holiday Monday instead of a Sunday as usual because, to be honest, I just wasn't feeling very sociable yesterday, so I just was not in the mood to film, so I decided to wait until today. So the first book I read this week was Wolf Light by Yaba Badoe. This is a book I received from NetGalley, and I really enjoyed Yaba Badoe's previous book, Jigsaw of Fire and Stars, which I read a couple of years ago, possibly last year. And they're kind of like a mix between YA and middle grade. They're kind of like, it kind of feels like they are between those two age groups in genre. And this one is really, really interesting. We'll around looking after the environment and looking after the world and not damaging it and trying to make a stop to what people are doing right now in terms of damaging the environment. And we are following three girls in three different countries. There is Zula, who lives in Mongolia, Adoma, who lives in Ghana, and Lynette, who lives in Cornwall in Wales. And the three of them are kind of like these spirit sisters where they've never seen each other kind of like physically in real life. They are all connected through this like spirit world that they all are able to like travel to, and they call each other sisters. They are best friends, they are sisters, and they all love where they are from. They love the nature that they are surrounded with. They are all connected to sacred places in each area that they are from, and they all have kind of like guides which are all like, you know, their grandparents or mother father figures, and they all have people kind of guiding them through this, what it seems like this journey that they have been set upon. They all have these kind of special powers, and they are to be used for good, obviously not for bad. The three girls start experiencing obstacles in their life when it comes to people trying to damage the earth around them, trying to invade their sacred places, and they basically have to rise up and try and protect the earth. That is what they are on the earth to do. That is why they have these powers, to try and protect these sacred places and to protect the world around them, and they have to kind of come together. And while things are kind of falling apart around them, they are losing their protectors, they are ending up like kind of having to strike out on their own, but they're all there for each other. There's this sisterhood kind of binds them together. This was a really, really quick read for me. I really enjoyed kind of the way the spirit world kind of came about, how it was kind of explained. I found like while we weren't really explained like how like their grandparents knew that these girls were like special, like we were kind of thrust into the spirit world, but I did still enjoy that. And I really, one of the best things about this book was the sisterhood, was the friendship between the girls. It was so special and it was so strong, and it was like it was stronger than anything else in the book. These girls were there for each other no matter what. If they called, the others came, and that is really important, and I really, really enjoyed that. I did find the kind of the villains in this were very villainous. Like it was a little bit like black and white kind of thing, which obviously isn't extremely realistic, and the way they were kind of taken down was very quick and it wasn't quite believable, or it just happened. It kind of felt like there was this build up and then it was like, oh, like they're dead, they're done. So yeah, I would have liked a little bit more there, but I do understand this is kind of a middle grade-esque book, so there wasn't as much. If this had been like a proper YA or a proper adult book, there would have been a lot more there. But I did quite enjoy this. I gave this 3.5, 4 stars, and yeah, as I said, it was a very quick read. I really enjoyed kind of the central theme of this, which was looking after the environment, looking after nature, loving your world and not damaging it, because that is what humans are doing right now. I picked up a thriller, I Know Who You Are by Alison Feeney. This is the second book I read from Alison Feeney. I read Sometimes I Lie. This book is about a woman called Amy who is kind of an up and coming actress. She's starting to really kind of break into the big time, and she goes home to her husband after like a day of shooting, and her husband isn't there. His like wallet, his phone, everything seemed to be at home, but he just seems to have disappeared. And very quickly we realise that their marriage is a bit odd, hasn't always been like a good marriage, and Amy comes under suspicion of possibly murdering him. It's like other timeline from the past by this little girl who is kidnapped, and we don't know whether is this little girl Amy or what connection she has to the story, the present day story, and it all kind of comes together and we start figuring out more about Amy's marriage, who Amy actually is, all these secrets Amy has in the past, and it kind of all starts to come together. This one, like, it reminded me, you know, I hate thriller books being compared to Gone Girl, but the way this is actually like the whole disappearing spouse act is actually very Gone Girl-esque, and the other spouse being suspected of murder or abuse and stuff like that. So there is that similarity there. But this one was just, I liked most of it, and then I had kind of this inkling of what, not particularly the end, but one of the things that would be revealed at the end, and I was just like, I kind of came into my head and I was like, no, they wouldn't do that. Like, that is like gross. Like, that can't happen. But it did happen, and it was extremely disgusting, and I'm just not okay with it. Yeah, and there's just some stuff then at the epilogue that I was just like, oh, like, it just made everything worse. And yeah, it was just a bit, the whole story was a little bit like ridiculous. It was a little bit unbelievable. There was some stuff that like they tried to reveal these things, but then I just didn't understand how it all came together for the whole book. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, I just couldn't see how everything that we got at the end, revealed at the end, how everything kind of added up as well as it should have. I don't think added up as well as it should have. And I do think I just didn't really like Amy as a character. I found her a little bit pathetic, to be honest. And yeah, and I just didn't really like the ending at all. The ending was horrible. The ending really kind of dropped it down to like a 2.5. It was kind of going to be like a kind of a solid 3 stars, and then the ending dropped it down to a 2.5, I think, because it just was a bit gross for me, so I didn't really enjoy it. Then I picked up Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Maria Griffin. This is a book I've been meaning to get to for quite a while, and Sarah Maria Griffin is a Irish author. I went to the book launch for this and heard her speak about the book and read out a few passages, which was really, really great. This is a book set in Ireland. It seems to be kind of set in present day, but it's like a present day where there's times you would forget actually what era it's set in, which I really enjoy. I enjoy that type of writing, that you don't kind of realise where they are until maybe they pull out a phone or play a PlayStation. Following a pair of twins, May and Rossa, and they are staying in the summer with their great aunt Rita, who lives in this kind of big house in this kind of old country town, and she also has a teenage ward called Bevan. And we kind of quickly learn that there is kind of a magic in this house. Rita and Bevan practice witchcraft and kind of bring May particularly into this fold, because they do believe that she also does have the ability to practice witchcraft. And we start figuring out there's other things in this house. There is a talking cat called Bobby. There is this really, really evil entity within the walls of this house called James, Sweet James, who takes the form of an owl. And I do think because of this book I might be afraid of owls. I could possibly be afraid of owls now because of this book. Basically, Sweet James is trying to get Bevan to do these really terrible things because he feeds on kind of fear and all these like negative emotions. But one of the most powerful things I felt in this book was this book very much is rooted in the Irish past of the Magdalen laundries and how Ireland treated wayward women. And one of the reasons these kind of magical beings have come into this story is because of something that happened due to the Magdalen laundries that caused such grief. It literally ripped a rift in the world and allowed these creatures that feed on all these human emotions to come through. And I just found it so powerful. I found the shadow of the Magdalen laundries and the shadow of what the laundries did, and particularly what the Catholic Church did to women. I just found it a very powerful thing in the story, and I think, I don't know, I'm not sure if other people will get that who might be international readers, but I think people who are Irish, and particularly Irish women who are reading this, will understand it. And there is like the fear that we get kind of flashbacks, and the fear between the girls' voices when they're talking about possibly, you know, being in a way where they could be sent to the laundries, and the fear that's there, and the fear of like feeling kind of hopeless in the shadow of that. Yeah, it was just done really, really well, I think. And there is kind of a theme of these like footnotes in this book as well, and there's one point where they talk about how the Magdalen laundry, a building that was once a Magdalen laundry, is in the town, and then there's this little footnote saying the laundry wasn't a building, it was a threat. And I felt the truth of that so much, having grown up knowing about the laundries and knowing about what they did to women and how women were treated. And yeah, it was done really, really well, I think. So I really enjoyed that. So this wasn't a 5-star read for me, it was a solid 4-star read. I really enjoyed the magic in it. I enjoyed it's a little bit whimsical, it's a little bit like, it's not really solid. There's something about the story that's not solid, but it's kind of like up in the air, and you just kind of have to go with the type of magic that it is. And yeah, you have to, if you want to enjoy the story, you have to kind of allow yourself to fly with it a little bit, and I quite enjoyed that. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Would really recommend for people who want that little bit of witchy magic, and yeah, some dark creatures and stuff like that. It's quite good. So yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I read a book in verse this week as well. That was Moonrise by Sarah Crossan. I read this all in one day because I love doing that with Sarah Crossan books. And this is about a boy called Joe, whose brother Ed is on death row in Texas for the murder of a police officer. But Ed really says that he did not do this. He has been in prison for 10 years. He is set to be executed. And Joe is only 17, but he travels on his own to Texas to basically be with his brother for the last couple of months. His brother's going to be alive, and go and visit him every day. And we are just getting the story of kind of the unfairness of the situation, and Joe's feelings towards Ed, and kind of getting to know who Ed is again, because he hasn't really seen Ed since he was very small, and the way they grew up, and the way, you know, their family is treated because of what people believe Ed did, versus, you know, how, like, you know, they haven't never had a very good growing up, and there's just something, yeah, there's just kind of the situation, the way people are treated in this book, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I just find Sarah Crossan is able to tell these stories of kind of these kind of stories that you don't really think about a lot, like in one where you're talking about, you're seeing a story of conjoined twins, and then in this you're seeing a story of a family who are being ripped apart by this death penalty sentence, and you never think of those kind of families, and you never really think of those lives that are being destroyed in these ways, and Sarah Crossan is able to bring these stories to life in this really powerful way, and yeah, I just love reading, like, she's made me love reading books in verse, because I'll be honest, they're kind of the only books I've read in verse are the ones that she's done, but I never thought I would enjoy a book in verse before I started reading Sarah Crossan's books, and she's just able to tell these such powerful stories in these little chunks, and I just think that goes to show what a powerful writer she is. So I really enjoy this. As I said, it is kind of a book that you could read in one day or just a couple of days, and I gave it a really strong 4 out of 5 stars. Picked up one of my very old NetGalley books I'm trying to kind of clear out a little bit, and that is Sing Down Stars by LJ Hatton. This is kind of a sci-fi, dystopian, steampunky novel. I'm not really sure what kind of genre it fits into. It's kind of a bit of everything, and it's about this world, this Earth that years ago, like 25 years previously, these aliens came to Earth and were like just floating around in the sky for like a year. They basically looked like big jellyfish, and they floated around in the sky for a year, and then they disappeared. And then after the years after they appeared and disappeared, a lot of girls were born with these abilities. So the first girl in the family would be born with this ability for fire, and the second girl would be born with the ability for water, and the third for earth, and the fourth so on. So all these kind of elemental powers in a way. And we're seeing this years later where like it's kind of a thing people are scared of. It's people to kind of hide away their powers, and we are following these girls who live with this kind of carnival circus thing, and their father's really great at building these kind of machines to kind of become animated machines, kind of very steampunky-esque, like these kind of mechanical machines that basically seem like they're actually really alive, like these dragons and griffins and like unicorns and stuff like that. And we are following a girl called Pen, who actually pretends that she's the boy a lot of the time, because she is like the 5th daughter. No one has ever seen a 5th daughter before. Like normally, like people would be stopped before they're able to, I guess, conceive a 5th child. So she has to pretend to be a boy so that she's powerless in a way, and I'm gonna be honest, everything kind of went wackaways with this book. It's kind of like, we're getting the story, we're getting that they're in danger, that there's these people that seem to be after them, then they're attacked, and then everyone scatters, and it kind of feels like this thing happens, this thing happens, this thing happens, this thing happens, and then yeah, it was just very messy. I couldn't really understand exactly how all these things were happening, and I was kind of like, it's kind of like I'd blink and then there'd be something said and I'd be like, whoa, like when did we learn this, or like, you know, that kind of way. I feel like the storyline with the powers and with this girl kind of coming into her power and finally accepting her power and learning to use her power, which is literally to be able to rain down the stars, which is able to like bring meteors down onto Earth or something. That bit was interesting, and I really enjoyed all the mechanical kind of steampunky machines and stuff. That was really interesting, and I really liked that. I just felt like there was so much that was unexplained, and like things just happened for no reason in this book, and yeah, it was just very messy in that sense. Like I feel like it did kind of have a solid premise at the start, and then it just went everywhere. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, and yeah, it was just a bit meh. And then the last book I finished this week was Yuki Means Happiness by Alison Jean Lester, which you would have seen in my library haul this week. So this is about a woman called Diana who becomes a nanny for a little girl called Yuki in Japan. She had previously worked with his family when Yuki was born, because Yuki was born in America. And she became a nanny for the family when Yuki was a newborn. And then this is a couple of years later, and we find out that the mother has left the family and the father needs someone to take care of Yuki. So he contacts Diana again, and she moves over to Tokyo to become Yuki's nanny. And we're kind of learning, the story is very much just seeing Tokyo through a tourist's perspective in a way, and it's a different side of Tokyo. It's not like the flashing lights and the big massive city. We're seeing the more suburban areas. We're seeing the houses that people are actually living in full time. We are seeing the journey to ballet class and the journey to swimming class and stuff like that. So that was quite interesting. It's like a different side of Tokyo, a very much like day-to-day side rather than the really touristy side, and just kind of Diana's like just her thoughts on Japanese culture and being like a white person from America, and the different things that she kind of spots and things that she doesn't really understand, and just her observations about the culture, which at times can be kind of uncomfortable, which I think you're supposed to be, because she is obviously a white person talking about a culture that is obviously very much not her own, a culture that belongs to people of colour. And there's times where she could say something that I would be like, oh, like I don't know how I feel about that, but it's not there's nothing that's like really like, you know, terrible. It's just one of those things you're like, ooh, I don't think I'd say that out loud. And then Diana kind of starts feeling that things in the house aren't quite right, that she might feel like Yuki, you know, might not be in the best place that she should be, and she starts having to make all these decisions. And Diana is quite young in this book. She's only 24, 25, so she has a lot of responsibility on her for trying to figure out what to do when she realises Yuki might not be in the safest place that she should be. But there was just something about this book that I just really enjoyed. I just could not put it down. And I said I read it in like a day, and it's a quiet book. Like there's not a lot of action in this book, but we do actually see a lot of character development from Diana, from like being this kind of young, unsure, not too confident person, and being in Tokyo and looking after Yuki. Kind of, you know, you see her kind of come out of her shell a little bit and be a more confident person. But I did quite enjoy this, and the author has actually spent a long time in Japan, and I think she says at the back she spent 25 years working and raising her own children in Japan and Singapore, I think. Yeah, Japan and Singapore. So she does obviously know the culture quite well. So yeah, like I trust that like what is in this book could possibly be like true to life in terms of how Japanese people live and, you know, their day-to-day actions and stuff like that. So yeah, I did really enjoy this. It's a quieter story, and so I would recommend it to people, but you know, don't go in expecting loads of action. Go in if you want a quieter story that's more about characters than plot. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So that's everything I read this week. This wrap up is really long, I'm sorry. So thanks for watching. Leave any comments down below, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.